If in fact it is Hamas's refusal, rejection alone that stands in the way of stopping the suffering of Palestinians, the release of the hostages, then it's better that that opprobrium be placed squarely where it belongs, on a terrorist group that started this all.
So the question, David, really is this a epochal moment where everything changes and peace becomes more plausible, or is this just another staging post on a road to disappointment?
Look, the elements of this 20-point plan are essentially the same ones that have been broadly discussed by us, by the international community in the region since December of 2023, which is to say, the need for an enduring end to the fighting that is accompanied by a release of all of the hostages, the introduction of a primarily Arab stabilization force with strong international and U.S. backing, a reconstruction plan, and a massive flood of humanitarian assistance. All of that, in terms of the substantive elements, has been part and parcel of thinking, accompanied by two other things: the need for that critical Arab participation to invoke a commitment from the government of Israel to the pursuit of a comprehensive negotiated agreement resolution with the Palestinians, and secondly, a role for the Palestinian Authority. Now, the plan is announced at the White House and agreed to by Prime Minister Netanyahu does include references to the national aspirations of the Palestinian people for a state of their own. That's a very clever phrasing. While Netanyahu has expressed reservations about that, not surprisingly, given the composition of his coalition, he did not reject it outright. And with respect to a role for the PA, that's also invoked in the plan as a progressive set of reforms of the Palestinian Authority, and then a growing role for them in Gaza. So all the elements are there. But the problem is not with those elements, or indeed with the United States or with the Arab interlocutors or even with Israel at this moment. It is with Hamas, the other party which has significant agency to agree or not to agree to this plan. Do I think Hamas will agree? The drumbeat of history would be strongly against.
And there's an argument also, David, that you're asking Hamas to effectively obliterate themselves, to say to them, in order for there to be peace for the Palestinians, for there to be the prospect of a two-state solution, for there to be some sort of enduring world in which Israelis and Palestinians live side by side, you've got to give everything up. You've got to walk away. You've got to accept that you're the problem. You're the terrorist group. You've got to get out of it. Now, is that plausible? Is that plausible that would happen? They don't strike me as very altruistic people, just to put it as mildly as you possibly could.
No, they're not altruistic at all. Look, it's worse than that. Hamas believes, it's my strong assessment, that they're winning. Because for Hamas, winning means surviving. And I think they are convinced that international pressure on Israel, domestic pressure from within Israel, will grow to the point that it becomes unsustainable for Israel or those who support Israel to continue with this kinetic fight, in which case they will be left with their arms, with a significant number of military cadre, and as the effective governing force of Gaza. Look, their ambition never was Gaza. Gaza is an instrument in their hands, nor is it really Ramallah and the Palestinian Authority, another instrument. Their objective is the entire Arab world, the world of secular Arab governments. That's their objective. Will they give that up? I don't think it is likely to be the case.
And it's an interesting point you're making there, because by that line of thinking, the recognition of Palestine by countries like Britain is not actually helpful in all of this, because it's a sign to Hamas that maybe they are winning, actually.
I must say, I certainly agree that the unilateral declarations of recognition, however cast over these last weeks, has certainly encouraged Hamas to continue with their resolve to fight on, to resist an agreement. It does nothing, not a whit, for the cause of Palestinian national aspirations or statehood. And it's largely driven, we must be frank, by domestic politics in those countries which have made that declaration.
What about the idea that Trump's now invested even more of himself in all of this? And the threat seems to be either Hamas does give up the hostages, walk away, or the US will help Israel destroy it. Does that change the calculus at all? Because presumably Israel is militarily capable of doing what it's doing to Hamas for a long time anyway. So I don't know. Does a Trump threat to Hamas change anything?
I think the fact that the president is now so closely identified with this plan, indeed sits in his own person at the top of this putative administrative body, is deliberately meant to signal to Hamas that Israel is backed by the United States, by Donald Trump. The problem is not that. The problem is, yes, the IDF can continue with a kinetic ground campaign indefinitely, but that ground campaign cannot, by the estimation of the most senior Israeli national security figures themselves, quite publicly, and going back to the end of summer of 24, the campaign alone cannot achieve the elimination of Hamas. Only a political vision, only a compelling political frame, an alternate political future to that of Hamas and its dark vision, is going to bring about the diminution and the elimination of a movement. And that's what Hamas is. It's terrorist, but it's a movement.
So an American bomb is no different to an Israeli bomb in that sense. It still doesn't solve the problem.
It is not. It is not that Israel cannot continue to fight. It certainly can. But to what ultimate strategic end? And the argument can be made, I think, quite well, that there is no strategic end to this other than more death, Israelis, Palestinians, more opprobrium generated against Israel internationally, which is a very dangerous phenomenon, and divisions within Israel.
The involvement of Tony Blair makes headlines in this country. Quite a divisive figure in this country. Doesn't necessarily, if you're on the left in Britain, Tony Blair's involvement does not help the argument this is for peace. This suggests that it's what they would consider to be warmongers gathering against the Palestinian state. I'm sure they would say something approaching that. What do you make of the Blair involvement?
Well, I think that indictment is quite unfair. I've worked with Tony. I've seen what he is determined to try to do in terms of international crisis areas. I think he profoundly believes that it is worth every possible effort to see if a way can be found, even in the face of all of the difficulties that we've just been talking about, to see if some better resolution can be achieved. And quite frankly, as I said at the beginning, the outline presented here at the White House is the same outline any of us would have come up with over the last 18 to 24 months. The issue is, can it be made to work in the face of Hamas?
And just in a word, hopeful, not hopeful, where would you be trying to work out where we should stand this morning, David?
It is worth every possible effort to see if this can be made to work. If in fact it is Hamas's refusal, rejection alone that stands in the way of stopping the suffering of Palestinians, the release of the hostages, then it's better that opprobrium be placed squarely where it belongs, on a terrorist group that started this all.
Fascinating stuff, David. We're at such an important moment, it feels then. Let's see what happens. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.